Welcome, one and all. This session is on creating engaging lesson plans, and I want to emphasize that. I will repeat it without apology. Creating engaging lesson plans. So it is not just a session on lesson planning. We will touch on technicalities. We will touch on key points and aspects of a lesson plan, but this is a workshop. For those of you who joined me last time, forgive me, but I will just introduce myself. So welcome to those, especially who are new and first time to one of my sessions and our Suraasa workshop or masterclass sessions. My name is Brian Coulter. As shared on the slide, I have a fair amount of experience in education, not as many as everyone, but a fair amount of experience. I am first and foremost a teacher. I always have been, regardless of the position that I have risen to or moved to in different faculties. I am a teacher. I am a teacher at heart. Within my teaching experience, I have been a senior leader, inspector, and trainer, and delighted now to be educator and teacher and trainer with Suraasa for a little over a year now, just over the year mark. A couple of weeks ago, I passed the year. So delighted to be here with everybody. Creating engaging lesson plans. Welcome. So what is it? What is a lesson plan? I asked that question, I think, in my brief video that maybe you saw or didn't see, but I asked what a lesson plan was. I would like you to think about that for a minute. What is a lesson plan to you? What has a lesson plan been? But before I get to that part, in the Q&A, can I just check what levels of teaching experience we have? Can I just ask everybody to say yes if you have up to 2 years teaching experience, no more. So up to either no teaching experience yet, you're a prospective teacher, or up to 2 years teaching. Can you just say yes if you fall into that bracket? Do we have some newbies? Some hands are raised. Yes, 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 going into chat. Wonderful, wonderful. So lots of, now that's fantastic. And I love that. And one of the wonderful aspects about being involved in training is talking to teachers who are new to the profession, because once you've been in the profession for a little while, it is as important, I believe, to share and listen to and be involved in dialogue and discourse with people who are new to teaching as well, bringing lots of fresh ideas. Can I ask those to share now, if you are between 3 and 6 years teaching, just say yes. 3 and 6 years, lots of people, oh my goodness, 26 years teaching. Fantastic. So quite a few. 3 and 6 years. Yes, yes, yes. Lots. Okay, some people are stipulating now, which is super. I think actually that answers the question. By answering how many years, I'll ask that next time. I'll just ask you to stipulate the number of years. That's better. Thank you for those who are telling me the number of years. So we have a huge range with us. And I very much want this to be a workshop. I want us to engage, I want us to share, and that means those who haven't taught yet in a classroom, but who are looking to prospective teachers, whether you've got 25, 26, 30 years teaching, let's all listen, let's all share, let's all collaborate. And there are 1 or 2 opportunities for you to do that during today's workshop. So please do engage, that would be fantastic. So I have introduced myself briefly. The nature of the workshop is what I'm going to introduce now, but the little post that I have at the side here says success in every failure. Failure lies concealed in every success, and success is in every failure. Quite an obvious statement, but something that I think is pertinent to lesson planning. You know, when we talk about lesson planning, and actually when I was asked to do a video for lesson planning, I started off, my first attempt for the marketing team was in black and white, because that's what it conjured in my mind, quite wrongly so. I think of lesson planning as a topic, and it's kind of grey, to be honest. If we think of lesson planning, it's kind of grey, and it should be the exact opposite. So I presented a video skit to marketing team that started in grey, black and white, and then changed to colour. And the idea was that many of us perceive lesson planning to be grey, black and white, and not too creative or engaging, but actually it should be. And the very aspect of teaching that needs to be full colour, emblazoned in colour and engaging is the lesson plan. Now, there are obvious reasons as to why it falls foul to that. You know, we have a busy job. It's a multifaceted, multi-skilled profession. You are performing every day from 8 till 3, 4, and then you go home after performing all day and you've got to sit down and you've got to mark, to reflect, to write new lesson plans, etc. So planning can be often done at the wrong time of the day, can't it? At the end of a long day. So we're going to talk about all of that, how to not make our lesson plans engaging. Of course, some of your lesson plans are engaging, but really take apart the lesson plan. And hopefully I'm going to suggest 1 or 2 things that maybe you hadn't thought of, or challenge you, or unpick your lesson plan, or even better, just take your lesson plan apart and rebuild it. So that's what I'd like to do today. Point number 2, blank page to type or scribble on. If you're old school like me, then please now, a pad and a pen or a pencil at the side of the computer, wherever you are, please have one, because you'll need it and it will benefit you. It really will. Or a blank screen on an iPad, something blank. Have it there, please, because if you engage in what we're going to go through today, I think it will be quite fruitful in some way, even the smallest way. Let's go for some low-hanging fruit first. And I hope that I will manage to meet some of your hopes and desires from this session in that sense, but maybe go a bit further as well, and maybe share one or 2 things that maybe you haven't seen or maybe haven't had time to explore. So before I go to the next slide, my last point is what or how do you wish to improve? Just scribble that on a piece of paper. Wherever you have a blank page, just scribble it down now. In the next 50 minutes or so, what do you hope to improve? Reflect on your own planning. If you haven't planned very much yet, what do you expect from planning? What do you imagine it to be? So just take a moment to do that yourself. I'm just going to check questions while I'm pausing for you to reflect on what you would like to gain from the next 50 minutes or so. PGCTL questions and PGCE, I'm very happy to discuss that. I will come back to that at the end. It doesn't really flow with the nature of the engaging lesson planning, so I'll certainly happily answer that, but towards the end of the session. Activities on how to connect a lesson to a lesson plan. Yep, we'll definitely do that. There are a few activities today, so that is there. And there is a reflection activity as well. Yes, so thank you for those questions. No matter how much experience you have at all. Okay. I will close the question and answer Q&A just now, and I'll open it sporadically through the session. So, oh my goodness, I forgot I did put that there. Takeaways from today. What I hope you take away from today is this. What a lesson plan is for you. And there is no one answer. Of course there isn't. Is effective planning enough? Is it enough to write an effective plan? Where does it go? I have seen some incredible lesson plans, the intricacy, the detail, color-coded, pictures joined. Then I've turned up to observe the lesson or be involved in the lesson. And truth be told, sometimes deliver the lesson myself. And it hasn't always gone as I imagined it would from the lesson plan. What I would like to suggest is adaptability is key, and we're going to engage in a couple of activities up until this point and with this point in mind particularly, and this is really the key point. And then hopefully after the adaptability activity, you're going to really consider how to own it, deliver it, reflect on it. And I will shamelessly repeat that a few times through the session. I say thank you for your time. A big fan of mine is Sir Ken Robinson. And again, those of you on any of my sessions, I do not apologize for mentioning Sir Ken Robinson. If this name is new to you, please look him up. And he starts a wonderful workshop session by saying, okay, well, this is what we're doing and this is what it is. So what you need to do is you need to own it, you need to deliver it, and you need to reflect on it. So my job here is done. Thanks for your time. Good day. See you next time. And he goes to walk off stage. And he made the point. And the point is this: you need to own this, you need to deliver, and you need to reflect. And he was talking about the curriculum, the creativity in the curriculum. We need to own it. And creativity needs to be in the lesson plan, and it needs to come from us. So those are the takeaways. This is what I hope to go through. This is what I hope you will be engaged in. I love this picture. I changed the picture a few times for this slide, and I have repeated the same picture a couple of times because I just think it's fantastic. It conjures up all sorts of permutations of what's happening in this little boy's mind and what he's creating. And all the time that we're together, I want us to be mindful of this. We're doing this, whatever we're doing, we are for the children. This is why we're here. This is why we're talking about the lesson plan. It is for the children, and that's an important element of lesson planning. But what should a lesson plan be? What should a lesson plan be? What is a lesson plan to you? I would love to pause now, and we have. I mean, my goodness, I would love to have had actually somebody on the side adding all the years experience that we have collectively. We're approaching 140, 150 participants, which is fantastic. Thank you so much. I hope you can stay with us for the next 40, 45 minutes or so. But not because I personally mind whether you stay or go, we're all busy. So that's why I appreciate it. But the sharing that amount of experience, 135 people times even 5 to 10 years experience, how many years is that together? How many mathematicians? Can you do a quick algorithm? Work it out, please. But all those years experience we have together, can some people just pop onto the Q&A now or to the chat? I don't mind, I'll open both of them. What is a lesson plan? What should a lesson plan be? What is it to you? If you can sum it up or give a brief answer to what, or even what it should entail, let's share some thoughts together. And if you're new to teaching, you know, there's a recording of this, but take it away, jot down some notes, and all those who are experienced in teaching as well. But would you mind now if I pause for a second? I'm going to pause and wait and see if you can offer for me, what is a lesson plan for you? What and how something needs to be done? Tools and TLM from Ms. Farah, yes. Plan intents, yep. Results wanted. Materials, yep. So absolutely, the practical needs to be there. You need to consider that. Structured script tool. Interesting, yeah. To execute the lesson. A tool to organize teaching. Intentions, not intents. I love that. Yes, deliverance of lectures to follow the child, means to an end. Yep, bridging the gap, prior knowledge and knowledge needed. There's so many comments coming up here. I'm trying to come up with all. Outcomes are achieved. Objectives and learning objectives designed to connect the students through teaching. Guidance and tools. Components used for making the class awesome. Love it, love it. Great to see some such wonderful objectives. A tentative plan. Yeah, tentative is a good word. I very much like that. I hope everyone else is reading this as it's filtering through, because there's some really great nuggets here, some fantastic nuggets. Thank you so much. Plan the work, work the plan. Yes, thank you very much indeed, Michael. Love it. I think I've heard that before, have I? Think from yourself, from your good self. Wonderful. To understand the gist, the moral behind the poem. I have never heard that before. Moral behind the poem. I like tools to help organize thoughts. Yeah, please put light and competences. Super, super. Okay, I'm going to move on a little bit. Those can keep going up there. Please feel free to add them. Thank you so much for adding those. And I will have the benefit of taking the script away at the end and copying it. But there's so many wonderful points going up there. With that notion, a brief activity then. So what I'd like you to do is, hopefully you have a blank sheet or something where you can do this. Now, components of a lesson plan are one thing. We can think about the components, and some of the components came up on chat just now. The necessary materials, objectives, background knowledge, instruction, student practice, assessment, materials, timing. Did I see timing up there? I can't remember if I saw timing. I hope I did, but timing is very important, of course, as well. But what I'd like you to do now, please, is make your own list and summarize possibly. Now, it says to share with everyone, but this is really, you've done a lot of sharing on chat. So we could maybe have one or two key points or sieved points, if you like, points that have been processed. But consider this. I've started a list for you when I consider what a lesson plan is, and there's a huge question mark over this lesson plan. Behind this question mark, you can see the outline of what I think most of us would imagine if we were to say lesson plan, the beginning of a lesson plan, a structured sheet given to us probably by somebody. And I'll come back to that a little bit later. But make your own list to share with everyone. Consider now who designed the lesson plan that you use, for those of you that are using a lesson plan. Who's the lesson plan for? What purpose is it? And there were some answers shared. Is it content driven? Is it knowledge driven? Is it activity driven? Is it engagement driven? What would you add to this list as being important for you to consider when you are planning a lesson? What is the most important aspect of it, or what are the most important aspects of planning the lesson? We heard lots of wonderful comments, or you shared lots of wonderful comments, but really, if you wish to share now or on your list, just add one or 2 points. Really try and highlight the key points. And what is your lesson plan? Is it content driven? Is it knowledge? Is it activity? What is it for? What is the purpose for you? Anticipated problems, yes. Time engagement driven, the outcome. Time frame, differentiated instruction. So now we're starting to streamline the key aspects of a lesson plan. Learning objectives, absolutely. Application-based into audience, considering your audience, imperative, content and time. And we will come back to the audience aspect a little bit later. Learning objectives, learning outcome, activity-based learning, good. Thank you. So whatever you have scribbled on your piece of paper, keep hold of that just now as we move forward. So I have in front of me a couple of lesson plans. Now, at the end of the workshop, I will share a slide that has some links to these and many other templates, or the opportunity for other templates. And actually, it's quite easy to find templates. It's finding a template that suits you. When we stop to consider this for a second, and if I'm just going to keep chat open actually for a minute just to see what's coming through. A lot of what's being shared in chat, I think you could probably sum up in these lesson plans. So when you look at these lesson plans, are these lesson plans what you would expect? Can I just have a yes or a no on chat now? If this is a standard lesson plan, when you say lesson planning, this is typically something like you'd expect to see. Yes or no? If it's no, I'd love you to elaborate a little bit if you can. Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's great to have the engagement. I know there's no sound. I know you can't speak at the moment. I might do that a little bit later, open up the mics to some people for some questions, but at the moment we can't have that with so many participants. So lots of yeses came up there. So typically, I think we can agree that for the majority of us, this is an average standard looking lesson plan. Let's just look at it and think about it for a minute, please. What information is on here? Which part of this lesson plan takes the time? Which part of the plan takes most time for you? Which part is a challenge? Which part is frustrating? Now, I'm sorry if I'm going to speak for you now, but when you have this sort of plan and this sort of plan and something somewhere in between, there's usually some generic information required. And fine, you know, schools do require that for good reason. But does that help you create an engaging lesson plan? If I were to ask you to highlight on these lesson plans, which part of the plan really highlights the engagement, where would you go? Which part? Would anyone like to type an answer? Which part of this lesson plan or the lesson plans you could see now really focuses on the engaging part, allows you to be engaging? So values, resources, so questions, okay, so questions. So which part of the lesson plan, the grade, the topic, the list of materials needed, the starter, the main activity, the extension, what learners need to do, etc. Main activities, so what they need to do. Okay, so the activities, obviously that's where the engagement happens. So when you're spending your time creating a lesson plan, we've agreed it will typically look like this. How much time do you spend on main activity? And how much time do you spend adding other detail that you're repeating every single lesson plan that you create? Now, the template comes from who? Often somebody in the school, somebody in charge of school development, somebody in leadership, or somebody in charge of the training aspect in the school. Not very often do I see lesson plans created by teachers to suit teachers, and then those lesson plans are driven in the school. And usually when I enter a school, a lesson plan is uniformed. It is the same lesson plan for the whole school. It is not for me to challenge that aspect of it, but I am going to challenge now how effective a lesson plan sheet is like this if you have to use a lesson plan sheet like this every single day. Now, I'm saying this rather bravely, possibly, or stupidly, either way. What I'm not saying is that schools should dismiss and get rid of a lesson plan like this. That's for another conversation for another day, and it might well be that that's the conclusion for some people. I'm not saying it is or it isn't. What I am saying is that we need to unpick this. If you're really going to write an engaging lesson plan, then in my opinion, you need to completely unpick the structure of a typical lesson plan. And I'm going to do that with you now, and you're going to do that. I'll just let you pause on my little quote for a second while I take a look at the Q&A. Okay, so lots of people writing in chat now. Yep, so it is quite complex, I agree. So the complexity in my mind is part of what stifles the creativity. So a couple of points on this screen. Be free to create. That's what I'd like you to do now. I really, really implore, beg, request that you free yourself from any structure of a lesson plan that you have used, seen up until this point. And I want you to take that blank sheet. And that's why that blank sheet of paper was so important at the beginning. That's why I really wanted you to take this blank sheet. So please take the blank sheet of paper now. Have it close to hand. We're going to be creative. Now, the Bloom's taxonomy here, and I put the verbs down for a very good reason, because this is part of the structure, of course, isn't it? the action verb from Bloom's taxonomy should be used in the learning outcome. You know, you should have that to have a structured learning outcome that's going to allow for progress, allow for children to understand the progress that they're going to undertake. We should be using Bloom's taxonomy and action verbs in those learning outcomes. I'm not going to dwell on that too much at the moment, but that is certainly part of what will make a good lesson plan or a good lesson and make it accessible and engaging. But going back to my quote, if you're not excited to plan, is it fair to expect your students to be excited to learn? I'm quite proud of myself. I don't know if anyone has read anything. Maybe I read it somewhere, but I really like that quote, and I've put my name at the bottom of it, so I'm taking it. And I think that it is so important. And I think we need to pause here for a second, because for years, I know my lesson planning invariably happened at the end of the day, 7, 8, 9 o'clock. I'll not embarrass myself by going on, but yes, it was often later. And at what point am I mentally attuned? What point, if I'm reaching that time of the day, how engaged am I in writing a lesson plan? You know, so when do you do your lesson plan? Now, if I return to this slide for a second, you're going to say to me, when other time, if I begin this lesson plan, it's going to take me half an hour, it's going to take me an hour and a half. I've got to reflect on the lesson, I've got to mark books, I've got to consider the data, consider the progress, reflect, and then write the lesson for tomorrow, etc., etc. Now, many schools have done well with this. They've moved away from there having to be this type of lesson plan every single lesson, and I don't think many schools are quite as structured as that. I was careful in my words there, but what I want to move to now is thinking about Bloom's, thinking about engagement, thinking about the creativity, thinking about what we expect of children to reach creativity, you know, to understand, to remember, to analyze, to evaluate, to move towards creativity. How are you going to be excited to learn? Now, there's a little activity here before I share all. I would like you now, and I'm so sorry that we're not sharing cameras at the moment, or maybe even in a face-to-face session, but I would love you, just for a couple of minutes, to very quickly sketch what you imagine to be an ideal lesson plan template that works for you. And at some point, my email will be shared at the end, and I would love for some people to share on the email a template of what you produce, either at this stage or at the end. If anyone has any questions, pop them in chat or the Q&A. But go on, please. I know maybe you've had a long day and you've been teaching, but just have a bit of fun with it. On your blank piece of paper, on your iPad, wherever you are, just have a bit of fun for a couple of minutes. Sketch out a lesson plan that you think would work best for you. Forget about anything you've seen in the past. What works for you? Think about the keywords. Go back to chat if you need to. Scroll through some of those wonderful points from all the experience that we have in place here today. And share, scribble down, sketch a little plan for yourself. Now, this is leading somewhere. It is leading somewhere, I promise you. I think it's a couple of slides away where we're leading to the main activity, where hopefully I'll share something that makes sense, if it hasn't already, of where we're going with this. Maybe if you could type in chat "done" when you have done a sketch. I don't want a Picasso. I don't want the most wonderful, intricate, just a rough sketch. If we can have, if I have some dones coming up there, then I'll carry on. But I'll pause for a minute. Maybe some people are still sketching away. Maybe some of you have gone to put the kettle on or gone for a cup of chai. I don't know. Okay, there's a few dones there. Thank you for participating. Thank you for doing that. I trust that you have done and you're not just typing done. Okay, that's great. There's about 20 dones. So that's wonderful that quite a few. So got about 10%. of done's going through now. Fab, thumbs up. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Okay, there's a few people with ideal lesson plans. Now, I'm so sorry. I would love at this point, I don't know if we can, if I go to participants, if I stop screen sharing, I don't think this will be possible to screen share, to get you to hold them up to the screen even. Is that possible? Shall I try? Shall I be daring? Let's try. It's a workshop. It's supposed to be interactive. Let me stop sharing. No, of course, the participants. So Ms. Pragati, no, the attendees' screens aren't there, are they? No, am I correct in that? I can't see, we can't see each other. Okay, I'm not going to be able to do that today, I'm sorry. But maybe when you go back to schools, you'll be able to share what you produced or think about it. So moving on, there's quite a few people, so a few more in chat. Can't share. Okay, thank you. Okay, sorry. So just a brief pause. Now, at this point, I'm not going to go through every single intricate detail and functionality of a lesson plan. However, please don't run away. I am moving on very quickly. But if you did want to look at every functionality of a lesson plan, then you could go to the Suraasa platform, which is completely free, and I'll share how to at the end if you are not on the Suraasa platform. And you could simply purchase for a small amount the lesson planning module of our teacher training certificate, of our teaching certificate. And you could look at all the intricacies that you want all day long there. I'm going to look at a few, but not all of them. So let me move on quickly. I'm not in marketing at all. I'm a teacher at heart, honestly. So your ideal lesson plan serves what purpose? Is effective planning enough? Now, whatever you've got, whatever you have in place, is that enough? Everything we've spoken about up until this point, is that really enough to ensure that you deliver the lesson that is on the page? It might be. What you've planned might be enough to do that. And by planning it, you have gone through it methodically in your head. And that is a massive part of it. However, my suggestion is the purpose of a lesson plan is this. Yes, you're planning to prepare. Yes, you are. And Mr. Bartlett, I do love your phrase and your quote, and I adhere to it and agree with it wholeheartedly. I also suggest you're planning to perform. And with performance, there has to be autonomy. And that's why I'm asking you to sketch your own lesson plan. And that's why I'm going to show you another template in a minute of a lesson plan that I found. It's not my own, but I found it and I like it. And I'll share the details of it just in a second. Would anyone in chat just care to guess the answer? Does anyone know who this is? Who the picture is? So I've asked at the bottom who this is. Does anyone know who this is? The gentleman in the picture. Anybody? Admittedly, not the best picture. Anybody's hall? Anyone? Okay, I love to share new educationalists, educators. He is now, if you're an English teacher, I implore that you please look this guy up. He's just about old enough to be my teacher, isn't he? Thanks very much for that. Yeah, I don't know if that was yes, no. So I shall reveal. Why is this not moving? Okay, let me go back. So it's a guy called Pi Corbett. Let me just escape for a second because I need to move this. I forgot. Okay, there we go. Okay, I can go back to full screen now. Pi Corbett. Can somebody just say yes, that you can see his name at the bottom right? I think I moved so you can see Mr. Pi Corbett. Can somebody just say yes if you can see? Fab. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you. So Mr. Pi Corbett, and there is a website there where you can find out much more about him. But he has written a book. He started off as an English teacher, and much of his work is based around writing and creative writing in the classroom. English teachers, please look him up. Fantastic website, charismatic man, lovely to listen to, in my opinion. You can look him up if you like him, wonderful. But when you go to his website, the www.talkforwriting.com, he also has a new book out, the curriculum, creativity in the curriculum, learning in the curriculum. I can't remember the exact name now, actually, it's escaped me. But it was released last year, and he talks about what I am talking about now. He talks about the need for us to engage from the moment that we're planning. The planning is when the engagement must happen, because if we're not excited or engaged as we're planning, then the chances are the lesson is going to be fairly mundane. It will be delivered in the manner that it is written. So interesting to look at. An engaging lesson plan will be born from the latter. Plan to perform, plan to engage, excite, enthrall, enhance. So, last main activity now. Adaptability is key. Adapting is key. Now, whatever I show you now, whatever you've created, the key point is to adapt and to review and reflect. And we know that. We do that as teachers. And yes, there is assessment. Of course, there will be assessment through it. Ever had that feeling with planning? Have you ever had that feeling with planning? Can I just say yes or no? Yes or no, very much. Yes, yes, certainly the last 2 years above all. Planning, 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 yes, so lots of yeses. Has anyone not had it? Has anyone always been engaged in planning? Because please, I would love, please email me after, because I certainly have had this feeling, that sinking feeling when we get to planning. Another wonderful quote from me, I think I'm going to start writing a book, unless it's been written before. Habit breeds consistency, you could say. Good habit brings happiness, and that's what I want to focus on. Good habits, and this next slide for me is what it is all about. Now, for those of you who have heard of this gentleman, and I have borrowed this as an example, this is not to say this lesson plan is the be-all and end-all, and it's not a lesson plan that I say anyone should use, but it does highlight the key point that I want to make and I want to think about for the next 15 minutes. What should a lesson plan look like? Can I ask you to say yes if your sketch looks something like this, in as much as you've completely got rid of the structure of the lesson plans we saw earlier, and you've produced something like this, something a little bit like this. It's a little bit off the wall. It's a little bit different. It has mind mapping boxes a little bit. Great. So there's some yeses coming up here a little bit. Super, super, super. So the point of this is that for me, whether this is good for you or not, is that what we're getting towards is you're getting towards a plan that allows you to write an engaging lesson plan. Why? Because it's going to focus on what you want to focus on. Now, you might say to me, but Mr. Bryan, Mr. Coulter, that's just duplicating. I do not have time to write another lesson plan and then go back to take it back to the lesson plan. Yes, it takes more than 5 minutes. I'll come back and answer that as well, Miss Nita. It does to begin with. But the point is this, is that if you are continually using the same lesson plan for every single lesson, but that lesson plan changes from topic to topic hugely, or you're going from a very practical based lesson to a more written based lesson to a more, you're using VAK, you're thinking more visually, and you need to engage in very different ways. You don't want to use one lesson plan that is half structured towards detail, the same detail as you have had to write every single lesson plan. What you really want is a lesson plan that focuses on student engagement, Now let's just focus on the points. Whether this takes 5 minutes or 10 minutes, what I'm focusing on is that it engages. And I think probably it takes more than 5 minutes, although when you enter, and I do share the link with this, if you haven't heard of this person, the Teacher Toolkit, I do share the link with you and you can have a look for yourself. But look at the headings. Now, you don't have to keep those headings. Autonomy is important. We are performing. Remember, we're writing a lesson plan to perform. Engagement is key. Where's engagement coming from? It's coming from your autonomy, your personality, your skills, alongside, of course, the fundamentals of what's required in learning. So the learning objective. Yes, differentiation, because you know your students. Assessment points, reflection points, an appropriate plenary, an appropriate ending and exit, however you want to do it. But when we look at this, the big picture, now you might not want to use the big picture, but what's your big plan? What's your big idea? Beyond the learning objective, yes, you can take that from the learning objective. Then when we look at some of the other points, stickability, engagement, teacher-led or student-led or teacher-led, what is happening? Student-centric classrooms. How much time are you spending in the class? Something like this drives us to an engaging lesson. It is an engaging lesson plan, even if some of the titles or the headings don't necessarily relate to you. Therefore, change them. Create your lesson plan. Now, if you create your own lesson plan, what I suggest you do is that if you have to use a specific template at the school, that's fine, then use it. But adapt some of the titles, write your own titles on it, or start the lesson plan on the reverse page using something that you have created or something like this. And I will share the link to this particular one. In fact, it's at the bottom left-hand side of the screen just now. So take a screenshot if you like. Yes, for inspection, there has to be uniformity in some schools. Some leadership teams will insist on that. But you're much more likely to write an engaging lesson plan if indeed it is written from a template that you are motivated by, rather than one that you are being shoehorned into for some of it at least. So if we think about objectives, they're standard. But what are they and how are you using them? Are you using Bloom's? How do they link then? How do those objectives link to the lesson? Now, if you have a lesson plan like this, you can use the lesson plan, then duplicate it in other points of the lesson. Stickability we'll come back to in a few minutes. Assessment for learning, as it says here, keywords, use of literacy, differentiation, etc. So when you are writing a lesson plan, your own lesson plan, a lesson plan that suits you, you really need to focus on, of course, the activities from what? From the previous lesson plan, from the previous knowledge, that we all know that. But are you focused on the main activity, or are you thinking of the engagement first and foremost? Now, a lot of lesson plans have included questions in recent years. So teachers are being encouraged to, quite rightly so, think of key quality questions, high order, low order thinking. What is the appropriate question to suit that level of thinking that's happening at that time? So you need to join together the level of thinking with the questioning, exactly the same way in writing an engaging lesson plan. When you're writing an engaging lesson plan, it's not just about writing an activity that's going to happen because it's in the scheme of work. It's about preparing an activity that's going to engage the children in your class. Now, here's the other point that this leads to, is that when you are using the same lesson plan, exactly the same lesson plan year in, year out, and it never changes, how does that reflect on you and your delivery and how you are evolving as a teacher? How creative are you being with that? Why should it be the exact same structure and template year in, year out? In my mind, a lesson plan should involve, and if you go to the 5-minute lesson plan website where this lesson plan came from, you will see that actually this lesson plan in the last 10 years has evolved greatly every year from people's suggestions. He takes different ideas and he evolves and changes and adapts the lesson plan continuously. Of course, it's not about completing a full plan all the time. You just need to complete the parts that you need. But adapting it to suit you is key. As teachers, I suggest strongly that you take that lesson plan that works for you and share it with middle leadership, share it with senior leadership, and ask, why can't you use this lesson plan? Can you use this, actually, careful how you ask that. Can you use this lesson plan? Would it be suitable to use this lesson plan? Now, if it's engaging your lesson with assessment, and it is, I suppose, engaging you as a teacher with your planning because you're more excited by the template that you've created, why shouldn't it be used in the school? Why can't that be adopted? Why can't teachers use personal lesson plans day to day? And it does happen in schools. So if it doesn't happen in your school, that you're not allowed to use a personalized lesson plan for your own daily lessons, why not ask that? Why not ask that question? Now, it might be that there needs to be some uniformity, and I'm not going to argue with that, but I do believe strongly that having a lesson plan that relates to you, your subject, your experience, your personalized style, your approach as a teacher, through your teacher training and through, I hope, training in school, much of what's spoken about is teacher autonomy. The one part of a lesson plan that's often missing is this. What have the children done? What have the children achieved? Now, there's a reflection part on a lesson plan, yes, but the children are at the heart of everything we do. Now, when we think about lesson planning, as we shared at the outset of this session, and we think of a traditional lesson plan, there's an opportunity to reflect. But that's always at the end of the lesson plan. The reflection should be at the beginning, of course. You need to take into consideration where the children are, how they reacted to that day, and what you're going to plan according to the children. And involving children in planning isn't a bad idea either. You know, I did see this in another school, and I borrowed this idea from another school, whereby there was an opportunity for children to part plan the lesson for the next day, and that can be a lovely plenary as well. But children must be at the heart of the lesson plan that you are preparing. So to bring things to a conclusion and to sum things up and to share one or two resources with you and final activities and bits, does your ideal lesson plan serve the purpose? Now, I hope that the purpose of the lesson plan has been considered from 50 minutes ago to now. What the purpose of the lesson plan is to engage the children, but that needs to begin in the plan. The engagement needs to begin in the planning straight away. If it's not there, then it's unlikely to appear the next day. Now, you need to own it, deliver it, and reflect it. Now, we do this continually as teachers, and I know, and it does take time. Very few real good experiences come without effort, come freely. It does take some time. It does take thought. It takes collaboration as well. So what I'd like us to do now is just to take a few moments to reflect and to think and to collaborate, because really the lesson plan template itself is not the key issue here. You could, if you really wanted to be engaging, you could be engaging in one of these lesson plans in the background. I would say it's a bit more difficult in some of those more traditional, let's say, or standard lesson plans, where so much time is taken up with generic information. And what you really want to do is get on with the key point of the lesson, and that is prepare the activities, think about the resources, think about the learning, think about where the children are, what happened today, and be creative and write it in a creative way, to write it in a free way, which this lesson plan does allow us. So whatever you create now, I would love to continue after this session, and I share my email address And if you want to email me or pop to me a lesson plan that you have created, or you wish to share some thoughts on that, then please do. But you will need to deliver using it. It might take a week, it might take a month, it might take a couple of terms before you find something that works well for you. I did use this 5-minute lesson plan, and no, it did not take me 5 minutes initially, but after using it for a couple of months, something like this, my planning was reduced to about 5 to 10 minutes. In the sense that the plan part, because I was excited to scribble on what I was going to be doing, and it didn't need to be in such a formatted way. I scribbled on here the activities, the objectives, the words I wanted to teach, whether it was student-led, the activities that were student-led, teacher-led, key questions on there, key assessment points. And that was, and I was able to follow that. And then now and again, I did have to transfer it onto a template like this when we had a school inspection. But whatever you are using, whatever you decide to use, whatever you have scribbled, whatever you have sketched, please continue to own it. It must come from you to deliver it and to think about it. Sorry, I went in the wrong direction. I am going to pause now for any questions. I would love for anyone to share any thoughts on how you maybe begin a lesson plan that is engaging. I know that's difficult using chat alone, and it would have been great to have audio and video, but the nature of the beast doesn't allow us to do that. But if anybody is willing to, and I do have a couple of slides left to share with a couple of resources that I will share with you, but if there are any questions, AFL is assessment for learning. Sorry, thank you very much. I hope some of you have a sketched template that you might adapt or use or consider using, or maybe go to the 5-minute lesson plan and adapt what they have there. I have found it really useful over the years. It has changed, it's evolved a lot over time. Okay, yeah. I mean, making lesson plans based on AI, using AI is absolutely fantastic. The structure of it, the key points, I think the engagement of it in there is the same. And if you're using AI, then that is absolutely great, because I think it's more flexible and it's more adaptable, and you're able to change it and adapt it to your needs. So thank you very much for that. So what I'll do is I'll just share a couple of screens with some links. So if you wish to take a screenshot of this, so there really is information everywhere. There's some websites to whet the appetite. So the first one you can see on here is the Teacher Toolkit. So www.teachertoolkit. Now, this guy's been around for quite a long time. He is based in the UK. He does have some interesting resources, but you can go on. There's some interesting videos. You can adapt and have a look. And then these were other websites that I found that I think were quite useful for looking at a variety of lesson plan templates. So those were quite good there. And then if you are somebody who is interested to look at strategic lesson planning, then the last YouTube clip takes you to something there. Pi Corbett was the gentleman that I mentioned earlier. Sir Ken Robinson, I also mentioned. Couple of other names. There's a few questions going on chat now. If you could direct the questions to Q&A now rather than chat, I'm happy to stay for a little while. I've got a couple of more slides just to finish off. If you're interested, there is much more discussion on this and many more points from other educators. It's hosted by Suraasa. Listen on Spotify, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube. You see lots of different forums where there will be podcasts, there'll be webinars, masterclasses, etc. So you can have a look there. And then this last point is just to share that if you are interested at all, then there is a free Suraasa platform. If you Google Suraasa.com, it takes you to a free Suraasa platform. Now, within that platform, you can have access to a profile page, a CV template, and there's a video option as well to build your own short video recording to support your profile, which is going to be there very, very soon. But that's on the platform. Also on the platform, you can click on a mentor. So when you go to Suraasa.com, you can click on a mentor, chat with a mentor, and then you can speak about any of the modules, any of the support sessions, have access to anything else regarding education that you might wish to on there. I'm going to go back to Q&A. Sorry if I sounded a little bit hesitant. I was trying to multitask as I was speaking. So there's a few questions coming in. Thank you so much for joining this afternoon. Hopefully that has given some points to think about, some thoughts, some reflection points. My email is also at the bottom of the slide that you can see just now. So if you wish to engage in any further discussion, I would love to do that. As I said at the opening, I am a teacher at heart. So let me go to some of the questions now. I'll go to chat first and I'll take the questions on chat, but after that, I'm not going to answer anything on chat. I'm only going to answer on Q&A. Thank you so much. There's lots of very nice comments coming in actually, which is very kind indeed. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, so there's lots of nice comments. I'll go and read those and then I'll sleep nicely tonight with lots of nice words ringing in my head. So thank you very much indeed to all those who have shared thoughts. I'll transfer now to Q&A and I'll go up to the top and answer some of the Q&A. Okay, so AFL, I said earlier, is assessment for learning. AI is a great way to do lesson planning because you can adapt very easily, and I suggest if your school hasn't moved to AI, then they should quite soon if they can. Lesson plans for physical school versus online, how do you differ? It's really interesting, and actually if you go to one of the so Miss Shruti, good question. If I just go back a page, back a slide rather, here, I think it was class templates, www, the third one down, www.classtemplates.com. If you go to one of those anyway, I think it's that one, then it offers online lesson plan templates as well. Personally speaking, I think that if you are writing a lesson plan with engagement in mind, with that mindset, and it's that mindset that I really wanted to focus on today, and I hope that I have managed to do that and really stress that the engagement is the key part of the heart of the lesson plan, really. And that's what we should be thinking about. So if you're writing from engagement, then it's starting with your activities. So I would say, Ms. Shruti, whatever sketch, whatever lesson plan sketch you have created yourself, do one for an online lesson that suits you. I think this is the fallacy. I think, you know, lesson plans, for so many years, we have waited for the school to give us a template. Why? Because many schools want us to use a specific template for uniformity. We're also encouraged at the same time to be ourselves in the classroom, to teach with personality. There has to be autonomy in the classroom because it is a performance, because personality comes into it. Therefore, planning in my mind, a lesson plan should have some flexibility in it. And I've seen this in some amazing schools. There is flexibility in lesson planning. Teachers are allowed some autonomy in the lesson plan template that they use. Not all teachers use the same templates. Some templates are complete blanks for teachers to create and do what they want as they want. So I would say online online lesson plans won't vary too much, because the key components of a lesson plan in terms of outcome, in terms of assessment, in terms of assessment points, in terms of how you split the activities. You know, here's a misconception. Every lesson should have a starter, a middle and an end, a starter, a main event and a plenary. Absolutely not. It should not. Why should it? Why should it always begin with a starter and a main point and an end? Now, I'm not saying a starter isn't good and isn't useful. I'm just saying it's not necessary in every lesson. So therefore, leave that blank on the lesson plan if there's no starter. What it means is the first activity. And that starter, that opening activity, and the wording of it can be misleading, might begin with an ending. It might begin with a summative assessment. It might begin with something, a huge activity that engages. Is that the starter? No, it's a main activity. Sometimes I would open my lesson with a main activity right at the beginning, from the get-go. Children walk in, they are engaged in a 15-20-minute activity. Yes, Kiran, sorry for pronunciations. I have shared some links of where you can get lesson plans. And some of those websites allow you to modify. In all honesty, I know it takes a little bit of time, but I would say get online, create your own, and go to a middle leader at your school and ask if this is okay to use. And I think that is the best way of ensuring that you have an engaging lesson plan best suited to your needs, your children's needs, your personality as a teacher. What can we leave out and include in normal lesson plan versus online? Okay, I've just touched on that a little bit. What mistakes to avoid while crafting an engaging and effective lesson? What mistakes to avoid? That's a great question, Ms. Zainab. Thank you. What mistakes to avoid? I've alluded to a little bit, but when we talked at the beginning about what is the purpose of the lesson plan, if the purpose of it is knowledge-based, then it's not going to be an effective lesson plan. You know, focusing on what resources do I have? Thinking about the resources first. Yes, they play a part in it. Thinking about the assessment first. What's the assessment need? How are children going to be assessed? Now, I can hear some of my colleagues and ex-colleagues and senior leaders screaming at me just now. Because of course assessment is needed, and progress. The word progress is what is needed actually, isn't it? Progress will lead to good assessment results. But the mistake I would say to avoid is when you're starting with a lesson plan, break away from starting with the functionality. And don't even begin with the learning outcome all the time. You know, begin with what you're excited about. What's the topic? You know, if you've taught it for a couple of years, you have that advantage. You're not a new teacher, then you pretty much know what the learning outcomes are. They're there on the midterm plans, aren't they? They're in the midterm planning. They're on the curriculum plan. You know what the learning outcomes are, more or less. So you know what the outcome is. So think about what excites you. Now, if you can get into good habits here and create a lesson plan that allows you to be time effective, then it's about focusing on the parts of the lesson that are going to engage, rather than the functions that take you a long time to write in a lesson plan, but don't actually serve much time or purpose in the lesson. So I would say those are some of the aspects. This lesson plan helpful for mathematics? I would say so. I was a mathematics teacher and I used it all the time. Not exactly as the 5-minute lesson plan that you saw if you take a screenshot, but it's something like the 5-minute lesson plan, because the essence of it was that teaching maths for me, you know, if I was teaching, for example, if I was teaching fractions, or if I was teaching, okay, let's talk about algebra, or well, anything actually, shape, then I would consider it from what excites me about this topic. So if we're talking about, okay, let's take decimals in maths. What excites me about decimals? Money. What excites children? Making money, the idea of making money, of making pocket money. The idea of it, because they're still young children, you know, it doesn't matter whether they're 17, 18-year-old or 7 or 8 years old. The children are excited about the concept of in the future, one day, you know, making money or being successful in their lives. So decimal points, making fun, you can have some fun with that. I don't want to get too into the ethics and the morals of it, but decimal points. So therefore, my lesson plan for maths would all be around banking, what banking is, buy and sell, and creating that environment for the children in the lesson the next day. And I've done that with 16 and 17-year-olds as well, looking at higher end maths, advanced mathematics, creating a real life situation. So again, even with mathematics, but if you're creating your own lesson plan, then adapt it to your needs. Base it maybe a little bit on what your school needs, create something, take it to your middle leaders, take it to your senior leaders. That's the only way that school development really happens. School development, school training shouldn't come from one person in charge of school development from the whole school. That's one person's mind. It should come from the new teacher, from the teacher of 20, 30 years experience. Every teacher who's in the school should be involved and contribute to staff training, staff development. So take these lesson plans to your leaders, take your ideas, sketch one out, create one, develop one that suits you, that excites you. I want to know about storytelling. I love storytelling. Absolutely love it. What do you want to know? Sorry, Miss Sumitra. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit? Because I'm not entirely sure. I could talk to you about storytelling for a while. I'm afraid there's no certificate with this session, but it does come with a huge heartfelt thanks from me, and I hope that you feel you've taken something on about it. Can I keep teaching as long as it's my main career and have my online business? I'm sure you can make it work. Feel free to email me if you wish to join. I want a few suggestions regarding storytelling session, some activities you like to share. So yeah, the storytelling session is coming up. I think those are going to be advertised quite soon. Yeah, so Mashuti, each institute has a certain format. How do we as teachers make the plans more holistic? How do we focus on pedagogy's learning outcome? Well, I hope what I've said in the last few 10 minutes and before. School requires teachers to bring new ideas. Good schools will embrace those ideas. Now, it might be that your school stipulates that you have to use a lesson plan that they're giving. Maybe you take a lesson plan idea to them and they still come back and say, no, 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 no. If that is the case, then without wanting to duplicate, I would take a lesson plan that has the school lesson plan on one page or on one screen, and then my own lesson plan on another screen. And I would say to my middle leader, okay, I'm going to use this for the main part. And then on the school lesson plan, I'm going to write one line of reference for the parts that count. So if the school wants me specifically to fill in some detail, and that's what the school requirement is, then, you know, we need to do some things, you know, depending on what institute we belong to. So you do that, but then the main body of what I'm wanting to engage the children with, I would still write on my lesson plan, which I would photocopy on the back of the lesson plan template. And I did that for a year or two, where I had the school structure on one side and mine on the other. And then on the school template, I just wrote 1 or 2 points, see other side, see, and then on the other side, I had my template that engaged me, that motivated me, that was related to what I was teaching, that allowed me to focus on what I really wanted to engage on in the lesson. Because the constructs of some lesson plans stifle the creativity. And I don't apologize for that. That is a fact. Should all the lesson plans have assessments? Absolutely not. Not every lesson plan should have assessment. A template, I would certainly suggest, should have an area for assessment in it. Now, assessment covers a whole range of separate discussion points in terms of, you know, a teacher will continually assess all the way through a lesson. So you are assessing to a point all the way through a lesson. You know, you're doing short diagnostics, you're doing formative, short formative, hands up, thumbs down, pens, rulers, whatever it might be, iPads, respond quickly. So we're always doing some sort of assessment. What I would say is in a lesson plan, it's very important to have reflection points. Now, reflection points might be an assessment. It might be a formative, it might be a summative, it might be a structured assessment. It also might be an assessment in the times that allows a child to reflect, it allows the teacher to reflect. And I would suggest they are not built in enough to lesson plans or the consideration of a lesson. And very often what will happen is, while on paper it looks like you have a 50-minute lesson or a 60-minute lesson, if you have continual activity from start to finish, and you haven't figured time for reflection or time for moving into groups or time for, then you actually, in a 50-minute lesson plan, you have probably a 60 or a 70-minute lesson plan, or in an hour lesson plan, you have an hour and 10, an hour and 15, 20-minute lesson. So I think reflection point, I would say, is more pertinent to this than assessment. But with that, yes, of course, there needs to be assessment at the appropriate point in time. But it doesn't mean that it has to have an assessment in every lesson as such, but we could go on and debate that some more. Okay, Ms. Shruti, thank you very much. I'm glad you think that works. The presentation, if it could be mailed. Yes, this presentation itself, if this is what you mean, is being recorded and will be put out on YouTube. I think we're down to about 70 odd participants, 76 participants. So there's quite a few left now, but thank you to those who have stayed. That's the end of the questions on the Q&A. I think I've gone through them all. So I'll pop back to chat just for a minute. Oh, every lesson cannot be balanced with the writing audio. How do I still make it motivating for learners? So yeah, I mean, it's not always about balancing with writing, audio, activity, having the balance of visual, auditory, kinesthetic, reading, writing, etc. You know, it's engaging because the children are excited about what they're learning. Now, if they're excited about a 10-minute piece of writing because it's a really exciting story, and they're being allowed to be creative with their characters, and they have some words round about, and they're maybe using AI to support with words, or they're designing pictures or characterization, or they're doing some personification, and they have some waves, and they have some fires and flames and trees blowing in the wind, so it's about, and this is why I'm saying, if you have a lesson plan template that excites you, that allows you to jot some ideas down and think creatively yourself as a teacher, then it's more likely that what you end up with will be engaging. The activity will be engaging. So if you consider what the children will be excited about, what has worked well in the past, what has engaged the children previously, you know, don't reinvent the wheel. If it is working, then repeat it. We don't want to be making more work for ourselves. And then, of course, having a balance. And, you know, once we get to know our learners at the start of the academic year, it can be a bit more difficult depending on how much data and information we have. But once you do get to know the learners, then, of course, you can start to adapt the lesson plan according. And it might be that the lesson plan itself changes throughout the academic year. As you get to know your learners better, maybe for some activities you really want to focus on VAK, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and reading and writing, and you want to get that balance of audio and visual and writing activity and hands-on and kinesthetic and doing. So you might adapt your lesson plan, and that is what I encourage you to do. In fact, if you're using the exact same lesson plan template, I would ask you, are you challenging yourself as a teacher? You know, are you effectively challenging how you're planning and what are you doing? Okay, that's definitely the Q&A answered. I'm just going to go to chat quickly. Thank you so much to everyone who stayed for the duration. I'm not sure what time it is now. I've lost track. So we are about an hour and a quarter, I think. And I think that that's been good time. So thank you very much for joining. I hope you have a wonderful evening. I will end it there. I think I'll just sift through Q&A and see if there is anything else. But yeah, my email address is there. So if anyone wishes to drop me an email line, then that would be wonderful. I thoroughly enjoy any education discussion. How do we clearly show the observer progress during the lesson from start to end? You know, on a lesson plan itself, you're not really going to show that progress, I think, through a series of lesson plans. So a continuation of lesson plans, you might be able to show progress. Now, that's an interesting question, and it makes me question, I would ask you, you know, what title would you like, or what box would you like to demonstrate progress in your lesson plan? You know, reflection is a standard box at the bottom of most lesson plan templates for you to jot down a few points that have gone well, but is that enough? Is that enough for your lesson? I think that needs to be personalized. You know, it's why don't you have a box that says progress and make a note of what progress has happened in that lesson, specific to some children. You might want to type some children name, your class, and annotate the progress, or you might just want to annotate or record what has happened with regard to the activity, how something in the lesson has gone particularly well. Now, again, that's a reflection, but you're looking at specific reflection. So how do you clearly show progress? I think to an observer, how do you clearly show the observer progress during the lesson from start to end? Okay, so getting away from the lesson plan, if you're not talking specifically about the lesson plan, one of the first questions most good observers will ask if they come into a lesson of a child is, what are you doing today? What are you hoping to achieve today? How are you going to achieve that? What's the aim for today? What are you planning to do? So an understanding that the child knows what they're doing and how they're going to do it. Then the observation will continue wanting to see that the child is able to independently understand how to explore learning opportunity given by yourself. Now, some of that will be teacher-led, some child-led, but being able to demonstrate that progress, there's lots of lovely, simple little ways. You know, you can get the children to draw a line in their books and put a finger on it, or put a cross on the line where they think they have reached in that lesson. So if you have a learning objective, keep referring back to the learning objective during a lesson. If you're writing a learning objective, why does it stay as one line on the board and then it's never referred to again during the lesson? You could ask the children to draw a line and say, with today's learning objective, how far along the line do you think you are? Now, it's quite abstract, but it's a wonderful way for you very quickly to see which children feel they've made progress and which haven't. And that's a telltale sign as well. You could go and have another discussion about that. Some children might put a cross right at the end of the line and they're nowhere near, they're only halfway along. And you know that, so you need to identify that. Holding a ruler up. And then, of course, preparing in your lesson plan short points of assessment for learning, short and points for reflection. As I said earlier, if you have short points of reflection where children either discuss, either it's verbal or it's annotated or it's visual, an opportunity for children to reflect on what progress they've made, not at the end of the lesson. Don't wait till the end, because if a child isn't making progress, if you leave it till the end, it's too late. So have 2 or 3 points during the lesson, reflection points or points of assessment, if you want to call it that. Okay, thank you. What does it mean, subject experts methodology? The methodology of a subject expert. I'm not too sure what you're asking me. I'm so sorry, Miss Asmaraz. If you wish to elaborate a little bit, I'll try and do my best. I'll just stay for a couple of minutes more, but talking through a sample lesson, plan and thinking process involved would have enhanced the skill more practically. Yep, I agree so much. I agree. Sorry, yes, that answer was a bit elaborated. Somebody's just said thank you for the elaborated answer. Yes. Yeah. Okay, Miss Zainab. Okay, I think there's a lot of yeah. I don't think there's too many more questions there, so I will finish there. I shall go myself. But once again, so many have still stayed to the bitter end. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. As said, we do have podcasts, we have masterclasses coming up. We have more masterclasses, webinars. Listen on Spotify. This is where you can listen to some of the discussions. We've got some exciting people coming on very, very soon to discuss all things education. And if you did want to discuss anything further, then as said, you can click on, you can Google Suraasa.com, click on the mentor icon that will appear. If you wish to talk about anything specifically, lesson planning or today, then my email address is at the bottom. Thank you again. Be safe, enjoy, engage, and try and remain positive throughout the academic year. Thanks for joining us again. Hopefully you'll join us at the next one. Take care. Goodbye.